Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Crochet for Baby. Thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit this little bonnet for baby boys and girls between 3 and 6 months old. It's very easy to make, so I hope you like it. Okay, so let's get started and thank you for watching. Okay, to begin, I'll be using these 3mm knitting needles. You can use straight needles as well. Now, I'm using this number 3 baby yarn. I'm using this brand. It's called Himalaya Everyday Baby. This says it's a medium number 4 yarn, but actually it feels more like a number 3 yarn or a DK weight yarn. So you can use DK weight yarn or any number 3 baby yarn. Okay, so here to begin, I have 82 stitches. The first stitch and the last stitch are our border stitch, so we're always going to slip the first stitch and purl the last stitch. So here to begin, this first row I'm going to knit the first stitch, but only for the first row. So we're going to knit, purl the next, knit the next, purl, knit, purl. This is all I'm going to do for this first row. We're just going to alternate between a knit stitch and a purl stitch. Continue like this and I'll meet you at the end of this first row to show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of this first row. Remember, this last stitch here, we're going to purl. So we purl the last stitch. And this is how I finished the first row. Now for the second row, we're going to turn, and here we're going to do the same thing. The first stitch here now, we're going to slip. The next stitch we're going to purl. Next stitch knit. Next stitch purl. Knit, purl. Continue like this for this second row. Don't forget to purl the last stitch. I'll meet you at the end of this row to show you what we need to do next. I finished the second row. Here at the end I purled the last stitch, so now we're going to turn. Now for rows 3, 4, and 5 you're going to do the exact same thing. So you're just going to slip the first stitch, purl the next stitch, knit, purl, knit, purl. Don't forget the last stitch we purl and the first stitch we always slip. So continue like this and we'll meet you at the end of the 5th row to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I finished making this 5th row. Now we're going to turn. Now for the next couple rows, we're going to knit one row and purl the next. Knit and purl. So here, to begin this first row, we're going to slip the first stitch and we're going to knit the next stitch, knit the next stitch, knit the next, and so on. Here, this is all we're going to do. We're just going to knit each one of these stitches all the way to the end. The last stitch we're going to purl. Remember that. So continue and I'll meet you at the end of this first row to show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of this first row. I have this last stitch. The last stitch we are going to purl. Now in this row we knit all of our stitches. Now we're going to turn. In the next row, the second row, we're going to purl, except for the first one where we're going to slip. So purl across like this each one of these stitches. So continue like this for this second row and I'll meet you at the end to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I'm here at the end of this second row. This is where we purled all of our stitches, including the last one here. And this is how I finished the second row. Now we're going to turn. From here on, we're going to repeat these last 2 rows that we did. The row where we knit each one of the stitches except for the last one where we purl, and the last row that we just did where we purl across. So here, to start you off, we're going to knit the next row, and then the next row you're going to purl. So remember that we always slip the first stitch. We're going to knit across like this, except for the last stitch where we're going to purl. Once you finish this row, you're going to turn, slip the first stitch and purl across, and then repeat the same thing. Knit one row, purl the next. So continue like this. I'm not sure exactly how many rows I'm going to do, So continue and I'll let you know right here how many rows I'm going to do. Okay, I did a total of 24 rows. So from here up to this last row that I did, I have 24 rows and it's measuring about 4 inches, which is about 10 centimeters. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start shaping the crown of the little bonnet. So here I have placed some stitch markers. So here I'm going to tell you where you need to place yours. Between this first stitch and the stitch marker, I have 9 stitches. Between each one of these here in the center, I have 8. Here at the end, I have 9. So the only difference is here at the beginning and at the end where I have 9. In between each one of the stitch markers, you should have 8. So now here, to do these next couple of rows, this is what we need to do. Here, we're always going to slip the first stitch, we're going to knit up to these last 2. So we're going to knit 2, 4, 6. So slip the first one, knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we have 2 stitches before the stitch markers. So now what we're going to do is every time we come to these last 2 stitches before the stitch marker, you're going to knit them together. So knit 2 together like this. Now pass your stitch marker to this side and again you're going to knit 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, knit 2 together. Pass your stitch marker to this side and again knit 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, knit 2 together. Pass your stitch marker and repeat. Continue like this and I'll meet you here at the end. At the end here, we're going to do the same thing right about here. So I'll meet you here right before we finish these last 3 stitches to show you how we're going to make this last stitch reduction at the end. Okay, I'm here at the end of this first row of reductions. Here I only have 3 stitches left at the end of this row. Now at the end we're going to do the same thing. We're going to knit 2 together and the last stitch we're going to purl. So these next 2 stitches we are going to knit 2 together and then the last stitch you're going to purl. Now all of the reductions we're going to do them in the knit row. For the next row we're going to purl. So turn. Here we're going to slip the first stitch and we're going to purl across. So slip the first stitch and purl all the way to the end. Like this. Okay, so continue and I'll meet you at the end of this row to show you once again the next row where we are going to reduce one more time. So continue and I'll meet you at the end of this row. Okay, I finished this row where we purled. Now I turned. So here we're going to slip this first stitch and we're going to knit up to the last 2 stitches. So we're going to knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. So here knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're always going to knit up to the last 2 stitches before the stitch marker, and then these 2 stitches you're going to knit 2 together like this. Pass your stitch marker, again knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, knit 2 together. pass your stitch marker, and then repeat the same thing. Continue, and I'll meet you here at the end of this row to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I'm here at the end of this row. I have my last 3 stitches here. Remember, the last 2 we're going to knit 2 together, and then the last stitch we purl. And then the last stitch you're going to purl. Okay, so this is all we're going to do here. Now we're going to turn, slip the first stitch, and then purl across. So continue like this, and I'll meet you at the end of this row to show you once again how we're going to reduce on the next row. Okay, I finished that last row where I purled. Now here I turned, so this first stitch we're going to slip. In this row we're going to knit 4, and then the last 2 stitches before the stitch marker we're going to knit 2 together. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. The next 2 stitches, knit 2 together. Okay, pass your stitch marker and repeat. Knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these next 2 stitches, knit 2 together. This is all we're going to do from here on. Don't forget, here at the end you're going to do the same thing into these last 2 stitches, and then the last one you're going to purl, and then turn, slip the first stitch, and purl across. We're going to do this until we have 2 stitches between the stitch markers. So continue, and I'll meet you once we have those stitches between the stitch markers to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I have 2 stitches between each one of the stitch markers, except at the beginning and at the end where I have 3 stitches. So now here, what we're going to do in this row is we're going to slip the first stitch, and we're going to knit 2 together. Remove the stitch marker, knit 2 together again, remove the stitch marker, and then same thing, knit 2 together across. Here at the end you're going to knit these 2 together, and then the last one you're going to purl. Then for the next row you're going to turn, slip the first stitch, and purl across. I'll meet you at the end of that row to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I purled that last row. Here we have a total of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stitches. So for this row we're going to slip the first stitch, and we're going to knit 2 together like this. Knit the next 2 stitches together, then knit 2 together, knit 2 together, knit 2 together, knit 2 together, and then purl the last. Continue like this for this last row, and I'll show you at the end what we need to do next. Okay, I'm here at the end. Here I purled the last stitch. So now I've cut my yarn and I left a pretty long tail here. So we're going to remove these stitches here. So just pass these stitches into the needle. Like this. Now pass the yarn through there, and here we're going to make a little knot to close this part here. So we're going to go back here, and that closes that little hole there, and then again go through there just to reinforce this little knot there, and this part here is done. Now we're going to seam these 2 sides here together. So along the very edge, these are the stitches that we slipped for every row so you can see the stitches there. So my yarn is on the left, so we're going to go here into the right side. Insert your needle like this. Now go here to the left. Make sure that you do this with the corresponding row. So then we're going to go to the next stitch here, and then find the next one on this side, right there, and seam this part here. Now we're going to do this right about here. This is where we started to reduce, so we're going to do it up to here. So continue, and I'll meet you right about here to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I finished closing this part. I did it up to that first stitch where we started to decrease. So here, it's measuring, it's about 2 inches or about 5 centimeters. Here we're going to tie a little knot right in the very center to close this part here. So right about there, just make a little knot and then just hide your ends. Now we're going to cut this yarn, it's too long. I'm going to hide my ends after I'm done with it. So here we're going to go on this side, and using the same needles we used, these 3mm needles, we're going to pick up stitches here along this side, in the center, and then along this other side. Now if you want to make this into just a little cap, you can just continue sewing and it'll look something like this. It's very cute. See, it's a little cap. If you want to do that instead, you can. So I'm going to continue with the bonnet. So we're going to go here into this very first stitch, and I'm going to actually use a crochet hook right here to pick up my first stitch. So just grab a loop and bring it through the front like this. Now with your needle, insert your needle there, and we're going to go here along the very edge, picking up some stitches. So pull this a little bit longer, and we're going to pick up stitches along the very edge. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. I'm going to use a crochet hook here to pick up this last stitch here. Grab a loop, and 16. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing here on this side, but right here in the very center, I'm going to pick up 1 more stitch right here, right in the very center. So that's 1 in the center, and now we're going to pick up 16 along this side. So we're going to just continue and do it in the same way, just like we did here on this side. That's 1, 2, 3, and so on. Continue, and I'll meet you here at this other end to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I picked up 16 stitches along this other side, so in total I have 33 stitches here. Now for the next row we're going to do the following. The first stitch here I'm going to knit, then I'm going to purl, knit, purl. So the first stitch, knit, the next stitch, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Continue like this for this first row. I'll meet you here at the end. At the end we're going to purl the last stitch, so I'll meet you at the end to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I'm here at the end. This stitch here is a purl, so the last one I'm also going to purl. And this is how I finish this first row. Now from here on we're going to repeat this for 3 more rows, so in total we're going to have 4 rows. So we're going to do this in the same way. We're going to slip the first stitch, we're going to knit the next stitch, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, and purl. Continue like this all the way to the end. At the end you're going to purl the last stitch as well, then turn, slip the first stitch, and repeat this for a total of 4 rows. So continue, and I'll meet you once this part here is done to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I finished the 4th row. Now we're going to cast off our stitches here. Now I like to cast off my stitches using a bigger needle, so I'm going to use these straight needles. These are 4 millimeters. So to do this here, I'm going to slip the first stitch, then the next stitch I have to purl, so we're going to purl the stitch, and this stitch that we slipped, we're going to bring it over the stitch that we just purled like this. Now the next stitch I need to knit, so we're going to knit, and then again this stitch is going to go over the stitch that I just knit. And this is how we're going to close this part here now. So continue like this, and I'll meet you once this part here is done to show you what we need to do next. Okay, I finished casting off all my stitches here. All I did was just pass my yarn through that last loop, and this part here is done. That's what it looks like. Now we're going to do some cords here at the end. You can also maybe add a little ribbon. It's up to you. So to do this, I'm going to use this 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. You can use a smaller size hook, maybe a 3.5, whatever you have to do this part. I'm just going to use this hook that I have. So I'm going to go here to the side, insert your hook there. I have this loop here ready, and I have a pretty long tail right here on one side, and then this here is coming from the skein. So we're going to grab this loop, bring it through the front like this. Now using either of these ends, either the one that comes from the skein or this one here, we're going to pick up, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 stitches. Let's see how this works here. So there's 2, 3, 4, and I think I can pick up one more, and it's right here into this stitch right there. I want to make sure that this part here looks nice and even, so I'm going to use a smaller hook to do that. So grab a loop like this, and then put it here on this other hook like this. Okay, so we have 2, 4, 5 stitches. Now we're going to grab both strands like this, the one that's coming from the skein and the one that we left. We're going to hold them together, and we're going to grab a loop and pass it through these 5 stitches like this. See? Now we're going to start making our cord. So here we're going to wrap the yarn. This is the yarn that we have. This is the long tail. So wrap this yarn around the hook like this, hold it, and this yarn that's coming from the skein, grab a loop, and then again wrap this yarn, grab a loop, wrap this yarn, grab a loop, wrap this yarn, grab a loop, and this is how we're going to make our cord, like this. Make sure that you have even tension every time you make these loops here, so that your cord comes out nice and even. And this is all I'm going to do for both sides, just like this. Don't wrap your yarn like this, but wrap the yarn like this. Continue like this, and I'll meet you once this part here is done. I'm going to make these until they measure, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 inches, long enough for them to be able to, for you to be able to tie a nice little bow under the chin. Okay, so continue like this, and I'll meet you once this here is done. On both sides, you're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'll meet you once this part here is done to show you our finished little bonnet. Okay, I finished the second cord. Now here, to finish this part here, all you have to do is, with this loop that we have, all you have to do is just pull a loop, cut your yarn, and pass your yarn through that loop, and then just pull. This part here is done. Now you can also tie a little knot here at the end for extra security. I'm just going to cut my yarn here, and this part here is done. Now these here measure about 8 inches. I decided to make them a bit longer. You can make them shorter if you like. So our little bonnet is done. This is what it looks like. There it is. This is the back. That's what it looks like. So now I'm going to try it on my little model here. Her head circumference is 15 inches, which is about 38 centimeters. So this little bonnet is for a baby between 3 and 6 months. And that's what it looks like. So I'm just going to tie a little knot here, make a little bow, and that's what it looks like. I think it turned out super cute and it was very easy to make. This is what it looks like from the back. To give you the finished measurement, so here it is. The height of the little bonnet is 6.5 inches, which is about 16.5 centimeters. Now for the depth between here and the crown, it's 5.75 inches, which is about 14.5 inches. Now the cords, like I told you, they measure 8 inches or about 20 centimeters. Okay, so this has been today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.